Welcome to the With You and For You podcast. Our desire is to equip college-age students within the Edmond, OKC area by discussing topics and questions that are relevant to our generation. With that in mind, let's get to the show. Welcome back to the With You and For You podcast, guys. It is Riley Jackson, your host, along with my three friends, Krista Dye. Oh.
The one time her husband's in the room
Krista Dye.
and you messed it up.
I'm sorry. Krista
No, don't worry. That was a good transition to what we're talking about.
Oh, that's good.
What we're
That's
talking
good.
about.
You're right.
Yeah.
Tyson Hill and Kyle Thomas. Dang it.
Nice.
That's my bad.
That's all right.
That's all me. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. They're still married. So
There's a close
okay.
one.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it was nice.
Sorry, Micah. That's all me, man.
One day we might figure out how to start this thing off.
I know. It's okay. I still call my wife by her maiden name all the time.
Really?
For fun, yeah.
Oh, just for fun. I didn't do it for fun. It was
No, you're right.
What?
I would be like
Her last name's
upset.
fun. Last name is Mesta.
Mesta.
What?
It's just fun to say. And then I say it with a little Spanish accent, Muesta.
West.
Classic.
That's good.
Classic.
So yeah, that was actually good. I guess it kind of leads into what we're talking about. So today we're talking about transitions in life. So whether that be going from like high school to college, or from college to a full-time job, or maybe even from a relationship that you're in to not be in a relationship anymore, or even in the good part of like being in a relationship and taking it to the next step of marriage. And oftentimes, like in life, transitions are uncomfortable and maybe even hard. And going from like one place to another that you're used to for a time period to a whole new place, it may be uncomfortable and it may be hard. So today we're going to be talking about these things and how to deal with them in a healthy way and to keep on going in life. So transitions, like I already stated, often bring anxieties and are uncomfortable. So is that an okay feeling to feel? And like, how do we deal with those feelings when we feel those things?
It's good. It's good. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll talk. Yeah, so it's okay to feel them. Like the initial feeling that you get when like things are changing, like that's normal. It's more about like how much you let it control your life that like can be bad. And so like there's going to be a natural anxiety of like the day of a wedding. There's going to be natural anxiety of like starting a new job or moving off to your first day of freshman year. Like there's going to be like that natural anxiety that happens with it. But is it like debilitating? Is it like controlling all your thoughts, or is it just kind of this natural place where everyone kind of experiences it?
Yeah, I mean that's a good because they're inevitable, right? Like you can't like stop growing up, right? I always find it funny because there's this time in your life when you're like a little kid and you're like, man, I just want to be bigger. I want to be done with school or, whatever. And it's like, well, you don't really know what you're asking for in those times. And then you get to that point where it's like, oh no, I'm graduating. And now I'm going to college. Like I'm excited, but terrified. And then you get into college, you're like, I'm so excited, still terrified. Sometimes more terrified than excited. And I think the important thing in these transitions in your life is finding and getting connected to, community. Understanding, hey, I shouldn't go through this alone. I don't need to go through this alone. And how important it is to have people in my life that will, kind of keep me grounded as I'm going through this phase of, transitioning from high school to college, from college to my now full-time job or my career or whatever that may look like, because they will help kind of bring me back down to earth a little bit and understand, okay, not everything is as terrible as it may seem, or hey, not everything is as amazing and great as it may seem. Like it's just kind of, kind of this nice even keel, medium level, and I can do this. Like I can get through this. And I think a lot of those times, the things that can benefit us in those, transitions is growing in our walk with the Lord, relying on the Lord through those times. And I think even us around this table, like we could agree, like we've seen God's provision during those times in our life where some of our closest friends have come from times when we have moved from, this area to this area or this community to this community. And now we have really great friendships. And so understanding like, hey, God will provide if we are faithful.
I kind of want to, I not really reword, but like, cause we talked about there's, like anxiety, like in like different transitions of life, but I also feel like there's, like something people really don't talk about is there's also kind of like this level of, well, this is gonna like, there's this level of like sadness that also comes with it. And that is also okay. And because sometimes I feel like people think like, I'm going to college, like it's all these exciting things, like I should be excited, but like there's a level of like, oh, I'm not living at home anymore, like, and it is okay to be sad about that for a second. And there's even times like, I mean,
But only a second.
Yeah, only a second.
Yeah. If it goes into like 2 seconds, then
then
you have issues.
you're in sin. No, just kidding. No, but I think like I mean, sometimes even now, like I'll be here and sometimes like I'll think about my community that I had at TCC and sometimes I'll be like, oh, like I kind of miss that. And I kind of miss like those people. When I mean,
we're right here.
Listen, I had a lot of other people
Riley
at
and I are
TCC,
right here.
okay? I know.
No, there were not other people. It was
It
right.
was just
Oh,
us.
yeah. I remember when me and Micah first got married, and our first couple of weeks of marriage, we were like, in a way, mourning our singleness. And like, we had a lot of conversations about that. And it was just weird thinking about like, oh, I have to like consider somebody else's feelings. Like, I can't just have these girls ask me to come hang out, and I can just be like, oh, yeah, I'm like, oh, I have to like see if that's okay. And like, if we're doing anything that night or whatever. So, and like, there's just a level of, I mean, sadness that comes in these times, but there's also joy in those things when, like Kyle said, you are following the Lord, or Tyson was talking about. I know Kyle's also talking about like finding community in those things, and like there can be a joy that comes with this. But it is okay to, I mean, be anxious and feel a little sad in these transitions, but like Tyson was saying, not stay there only for a second, but not 2 seconds.
I think that's very important to understand in transitions, though. And like I tell college students this all the time, whether you're a freshman or a senior or anything in between, is like you're going to grieve the season that you were just in. It's just gonna be natural. You're gonna grieve your high school time. You're gonna grieve your college time. You're gonna grieve your freshman year. And so like part of like transitions, besides like the anxiety of it, is like, okay, like be fully present in those times, because you're never going to get another time like that. I tell freshmen that like you're never going to get another year like your freshman year of college. You're never going to experience life the way you do your freshman year. Your sophomore, junior, senior year are just going to kind of blend together, but your freshman year is going to stick out as a time that like things just changed in a good way. And so really enjoy that time while you're in it. Don't look back and start the grieving and be like, oh man, I wish I would have done this, this, and this. Be able to enjoy the time, knowing that, okay, there's going to come a time when I'm going to grieve this endeavor, this time, whether it's in college or my singleness or high school. And so use that to motivate you to fully enjoy it. So, because so many times what we'll see with seniors is they'll start to pre-grieve losing their friends, and they'll separate and isolate instead of just like really enduring and being there and grieving with their friends together and having those last few memories together. They'll start to pre-grieve and push away. And it's like, no, use this time, this last little bit of time in this season of your life to truly experience that season, so that when you transition, you know, you have this fond memory that you're going to be sad about no matter what. And so like really just experience these seasons.
Yeah. Well, and also like with that, I mean, especially like when you do feel sad in those moments, like, again, it's okay to be sad, but also find the joy in those moments of, I mean, for me, like, a lot of the people that I knew at TCC, like, I learned a lot from them. And I can look back on those memories and be sad that, yeah, I don't have that anymore, but I can look back on that and be like, wow, like, these people really helped me become who I am today. Even, like, when me and Micah got married, I mean, grieving my singleness, but I can look back on that season of time of being single and be like, I like use that for the glory of the Lord, and I loved being single and I learned a lot. Like now I'm here, and because I used this time wisely, like I am doing these things now. So like you can still look back on these times and have joy because of what you did in that time and how you used that time. And it also helps make those transitions just a little bit smoother when you're using your time for the sake of the kingdom, and it makes those transitions just smoother in that way because you used your time wisely and you don't have regrets in that way. But yeah. Okay,
Wow, we
sorry.
really
I know, I
answered
feel
a
like
question,
I feel
didn't
like
we?
I really
Yeah.
went off
Yeah.
your question, but I felt like that needed to be
We're
said.
not gonna let you ask another question.
No, that was good.
Yeah, we're just taking over.
Hey,
So-
you know what? That was good. I
You
like
can go
it.
ahead and step out.
Okay. I do kind of want to expand on that, Krista. So, like, you just got married, and you, like, you,
Yes,
well, you
it's
went
true.
through like a huge.
My last name has changed.
It's crazy. Sorry, my bad. You went through a huge change in life. What was like? What did it feel like going into that? And I know you're excited about it,
Yeah.
but what were the feelings going into it, and how did those kind of change as like the first couple weeks of marriage kind of happened?
Well, Micah's really excited about what I have to say. Micah lived that whole season with me in engagement, but
But a guy's perspective and a
It's
girl's
very
perspective
different, yes, and that's
are
what
very different.
I was about to say because
I did not grieve my singleness when I got married. I'm going to be honest. I was like, praise the Lord, it's over.
well, I like well.
Great, being single is awesome.
Yeah, that's what we tell each
let
other.
Me, let
That's
me,
what we say
let
every
me-
single-
No,
Riley.
single is being cool. We're fine.
Yeah, just wait till you're married, bro.
Okay,
Unless the Lord doesn't have it for you, then that's fine.
you know what?
Yeah, and then that's fine.
Singleness is okay, guys. It is great. It's a gift.
I'm not saying anything different.
Yeah.
I feel like Riley's trying to convince himself right now.
That's good. We can work on that later. Krista, what were you saying?
Anyway, and that's why I brought up the whole like aspect of in transitions it's okay to be sad, because I think I felt that a lot while we were engaged, and I think one of the biggest things, and this is a very like specific example, but it I mean it had to happen in being married. And again, guys don't go through this. So I really struggled with the transition of like my dad not being like the guy that I call when my car breaks down or when I have a question about something. Because like, I mean, me and my dad have a very special relationship. Like I love my dad so much, and he's just been there for me and all these things. And now that I'm married to Micah, that transition was really hard for me, and I think that stemmed a lot of other things, like in just the transition of getting married, that I was like, okay, like I have to look at this differently. Even when I like got married, like I mean, I view my parents differently. Like even moving out, like you're not dependent on your parents anymore, and then when you get married, like I mean, Micah is my go-to person for absolutely everything. Like it's not my mom, it's not my dad, like it is Micah. And that, I mean, I still sometimes will struggle with that sometimes, just like in my mind of like, okay, like it is Micah. Like I don't need to call my dad about a car problem or whatever. Like I call Micah about those things. And so I think that for me was hard, and I don't know if other girls struggle with that, but I did. But even as me and Micah got married, I kind of said, like, I mourned my singleness. And we even talked about it when we were engaged. I was like, oh, I'm probably going to mourn this a lot more than you are. And he was like, yeah, probably. I was like, okay.
Because Micah still calls his dad. He still calls to ask about if car breaks down. He calls his dad.
Micah knows not to come to me for those kinds of things anyway. So.
It's like, my dad's on speed dial. Are you kidding me?
But like because like especially my time at TCC and even just like coming here, like I was really big on singleness and just like using it and asking the Lord, like, how can I maximize my singleness for the sake of your kingdom, and just like wanting to be immersed in that. And then Micah just showed up, and I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, I want to marry this man, but I still enjoy, I mean, being single and doing those things, but also, and this is the other thing that I think is, I think we all have to realize, like, a lot of times in life, like, everything is for a season. And I mean, the Lord is going to reveal those seasons to you. You just have to be faithful in all the seasons and all the transitions of life that the Lord gives to you. So yeah, that's what I would say. And that also with, sorry, I feel like I'm just really on.
This
a
is the
roll
most you've talked
Well-
all year.
Let me just keep adding things.
Well,
crazy, yeah.
because it just, I don't know. I honestly didn't, on the way here, I was like, I probably won't talk a whole lot on this, but here we are. Just like with being faithful, because sometimes, like, I talk to a lot of college students, and I'm sure you guys do too, they sit in my office and they're like, Kyle, stop shaking your head. And they're like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I'm stressed about it. I'm about to graduate. I don't know what's going on, and they're stressed about these transitions. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and he was just talking about how people are always like, oh, I want to do all these great things for the Lord, like post-graduation, I want to do all this. But not a lot of people are like, Lord, I just want to be faithful with today. And that is so important because in transitions, we can overwhelm ourselves focusing so much on tomorrow and the future. And Lord, I just want to know what your plan is for our life. But how often do we wake up every day and say, Lord, like, help me to just be faithful with today and the time you've given me to do the things that you are calling me to do today? And just in that, being faithful, like, the Lord is going to provide for all those transitions in life. And the Lord is going to provide in, I mean, alleviating a lot of anxieties because you're solely focused on today and just being faithful with the day that the Lord has given you today. So, okay, I'm done.
Liar. I don't believe you. 1 second.
I'm done on that question.
yeah, we'll see. I think it really is important to understand because I interact with students all the time, graduating college, leave the community that they have, and they struggle to find a similar community because and it's very much like seeking for, hey, I'm just trying to replace what I had in the same way, but with like older people or where I'm at in life because I don't think I can go back to, I graduated college, so I can't go back to BCM because I'm not a college student anymore. That's a lie. I don't like it when people believe that because you've been a part of building that community. And it's okay to be around, But more importantly is, hey, God's given you that time in your life for a reason. He's given you that season for a reason. Why are you looking like that?
Oh, I was giving. He was shaking his.
I was tapping my.
Classic Riley. But it's to understand, like, yes, I think you can grieve those times when they come to an end. You can grieve your time in high school. You can grieve your time being single for, I guess, whatever. Anyway,
It makes sense. Okay, it just makes sense.
Okay, but understanding, hey, I had that time for a purpose. That time is now behind me. And now, like, I've been developed in these ways while I was in that, right? And now I can help, as Chris mentioned, like, hey, I can help talk with people, that are kind of in this time of singleness. Like, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago on a Thursday night, people freak out because they're single for, 4 years in college thinking that I'm never going to meet anybody. I must be called to singleness when that may not be true because guess what? There are a lot of people in the world and you'll probably meet people outside of college as well. It's crazy. And that's what, and that can happen, right? In the same way of, hey, I've had this really great community and now I'm graduating, I'm leaving. I want this to stay the same, but it will be different. But God has given me an understanding of, well, this is what community looks like. So now I can go be a part of a church. I can go be a part of this ministry at my church or at the church I get plugged into, and I can be an active role in developing a similar community. It won't be the same, but similar. Like I can be proactive in getting plugged in and allowing other people to get plugged in and making them feel welcome and comfortable. But we struggle because we are very much, well, what do you have to offer me? Like I'm seeking these things. I don't really want to put the work in yet. So what do you have to give me when it's like, there's nothing in scripture that really says that, right? Like, no, like these are things that we have to work towards. You don't just participate kind of through your transition into college. It's not like, okay, well, and I mean, a lot of freshmen, we've geared towards that, right? Like we do it as a campus ministry, churches do it. It's like, hey, we're going to have all these freshmen around. We want to really entice them to come and be a part of our stuff. But those freshmen that really get plugged in, they get plugged in because they are kind of doing it on purpose, right? Like they're going to be the ones that are going to come to things. And even if they don't necessarily have a great first experience, like they're like, I need this. I was talking when we did our parents' night. A mom was talking to me last night, and she's like, I don't know if my daughter still would have been in school if it wasn't for the community that you guys have provided her. And it's a real thing to where it's like, hey, like these are things that people are going to be wrestling with and struggling through, but we also have to have some motivation on our side to be like, okay, I'm getting plugged in. Like I can't say, oh, this church isn't very good when all I do is attend Sunday morning service and don't try and get actively involved, right? Or try to build community. Okay, we can be a part of building community wherever we're at. The commonality needs to be Jesus, not just, oh, well, they like sports like I like sports. Oh, they're an OSU fan like I'm an OSU fan or whatever. It's like, no. Like I can be great friends with Riley over here and he's an OU fan because it really doesn't matter when it comes to those things, right? Those are secondary, have nothing to do with it. The fact that we both believe in Jesus and strive to live our lives faithfully for him should be the precedent. And those things should be things that we can bond over, right? And so I think it's just really important in transitions, whatever it is, whether it's singleness to marriage, engagement, whether it's high school to college, whether it's, hey, I'm transferring from a 2-year school to a 4-year school, and I'm coming in as a junior, and all the people that are in my class have these great relationships with people that they've been around for the last 2 years, and I'm coming in. If we are intentional and we are proactive, we can get plugged in. But it's going to take effort, and we have to be willing to give that effort to have a successful to really just be successful in kind of transitioning from this old phase of life to this new stage, or old stage, new stage, not phase.
Yes. Well, actually, you just like answered my entire second question, so that was good. Thank you.
Sorry.
That was good. Hey, you did great, man.
I don't even know what the questions are. If that
It
helps.
was. Hey, that's just the Holy Spirit.
You
know.
never look at the questions.
That's just,
We had questions.
yeah, we did. Yeah.
Tyson?
The Holy Spirit just came in and just did
Amen.
it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so for the third question, I'm going to switch this one up just a little bit. For the people who are maybe in this college life right now and who are in a relationship and that relationship comes to an end with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, that is a transition in life. What?
I just love that this is the question you're asking. Go ahead.
It's so fun. Okay. And you see everybody around you potentially getting married, engaged, things like that. And
Anyway, go ahead.
what?
Nothing.
What is it?
I feel like this is a question that you've been wrestling with for a while, but go ahead.
No. What?
I told you, Riley just comes up with questions that he just wants to know his answers to and
Okay.
just asks us.
I like it.
Guys, I've been single for a long time.
I know.
I don't.
know. But all your friends are getting married and engaged.
This is
It's okay. Keep
I'm-
on with your question. You're,
Okay.
you're
I
good.
already, we already know what his question's going to be. Why do you have to keep
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry,
The
I'm so
audience
sorry.
doesn't know.
okay.
Everyone around you
Yeah.
seems
Well,
to be moving forward
Okay.
in relationships.
Okay, so with those things, what is the tactic of like not comparing yourself
That's good.
to those people
Yeah.
and not letting that like it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like there's still going to be college afterwards.
Yeah.
Or not college afterwards.
Life.
There's still going to be life,
Life
afterwards.
afterwards.
There's not going to be
Can I-
college
There's
afterwards.
still going to be college.
Can I broaden your question a little bit?
Yes, you can broaden.
Can we
this.
look at it from a sense of like any transition? Like your friends are transitioning in front of you and you're still here.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
just as a whole.
Your friends are going to college. Your friends are
Yeah.
graduating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
They're
friends are
moving, to a
moving
new
on.
Job, yeah.
Yeah.
To a new
Yeah.
job.
It's just a lack of
You're kinda
transition
still where
for
you're
you.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that
I don't know, Riley. What do you do?
I think that we really like need to understand a few things of like patience being one, and like where are you getting your like identity in your life, in your season? What are you abiding in for that time? Because like if you're abiding in the Lord, then you trust that what He has given you is good and just for you for this moment. And so whenever we get outside of that, whenever we're like, oh man, I want what they have, I want what they have, I want what they have, and then we get this comparison, like we're not abiding in what the Lord has given us now. And like I was talking about earlier, when we look at like pre-grieving or all that stuff and like separating, isolating, it's from this sense of like, okay, I'm sad that I don't have this anymore. I'm sad someone has this and I don't have it. And so we're not abiding in where we are, and we're like losing out on life right in front of us. And so and like I said at the top of this podcast, like it's okay to feel those initial emotions. Like, don't hear me say this and say like, oh, if I even have an ounce of comparison in me, then I should just get mad at myself. No, I'm not saying that. It's like, what are you letting it do? Because like in the moment, like, okay, you just broke up with your girlfriend, or your best friend's graduating college, or they're getting married, and there's a moment where it's okay to be sad about that. It's okay to be sad about that. But like reminding yourself, like, okay, like this isn't for me right now. If it was for me, the Lord would give it to me.
I kind of want to, what you were talking about with identity, I think that's such a big thing. And this is just like a really interesting concept, because I think a lot of times we will like desire things, like we desire to be married, or we desire to like graduate college and all these things, and they're good things. And because they're good things, and because godly people around us are doing those things and we desire them, we think that the Lord is going to give it to us because we just desire it and we feel like we're entitled to these things. And we are finding our identity in things that aren't even promised to us. Like the Lord does not promise you a future spouse, or the Lord doesn't even promise that you're going to finish college or have this certain job or live in this certain place or whatever. And so because of those things, like we're not content. And because we're not content, we see all these other people moving around to all these different transitions of, again, like marriage, having this job, moving to this place or whatever. And that can breed, jealousy or envy, even anger, like towards those people, like whatever it is. And if that's happening, like, even though you desire those things, like those feelings are not of the Lord, and you are finding your identity in things, again, that aren't even promised to you. And you're not being content in what the Lord has for you. You're not being faithful with what the Lord has for you, because you're so busy comparing yourself to other people and the transitions that they're going through, that you're missing what the Lord has for you in this season and in this transition of life, because you're just not being faithful. And that's what we are called to do. We're not called to live someone else's life. We're called to live the life that the Lord has called us to live.
Yeah. And I think about this, and I was talking earlier with a former student, because there are times when, you think about hearing a speaker, right? Like hearing somebody that may be speaking at a camp or even on a podcast. Like we can tend to elevate people above, because it's just like, oh, they have this huge following and they get all this acknowledgement. It's like we elevate them to this, and then we're like, oh man, I think for me, like I struggle early on. I was like, oh, I'd love to be on that stage, right? And it's like, well, because I desire that, that would be a reason why I shouldn't be on there. Right, like I should not want to do that, because it's a burden, right? It's like, man, there's a lot of responsibility on there, like all these things that could happen, and if my flesh is desiring this thing, that shows me I do not deserve it, and I would not use it faithfully. And I think you think of the Ten Commandments, like, okay, well, there's one of those in there. It's thou shalt not covet, right? Like that's a pretty big deal. And it's not just coveting people's stuff. It's coveting their places in life, right? Like, oh, hey, they may be married, and they may have gotten married early on. I wish I could have gotten married early on. Like, they may have gotten married early on and had kids early on, and now their kids are getting ready to graduate. It's like, oh, man, it'd be so nice to be, 40 and empty nesters or whatever. It's like, no, that's not what the Lord had for me. And if I'm sitting there saying, man, I wish I had that, then I'm saying, well, God, what you've given me isn't good enough. And I'm not appreciative of it. I'm not thankful for it. And all that's going to do is create bitterness in my heart, and envy and jealousy and strife. Like all of these things are going to spur from that seed of, yeah, but it's not this. And I think if we're falling into that boat, like it's not healthy. It'll lead us into a place that will show us like there is no hope. It is not fulfilling. And even if we got what we wanted, it would never measure up to the desire we have in our heart for what it should be. And that's what, it's like, hey, if you long to be married, that's okay as long as it's in a proper perspective and place. Because if you long to be married so much that you're going to make it happen, that person will not live up to your expectations. And it's not beneficial for them if you're doing that, because then it's like, hey, I've put all these expectations on you as my spouse, and you're not doing these things that I thought you would do. And now, oh, hey, divorce is on the table, and that's not glorifying the Lord, in that instance. And so I think Krista hits it, really well, just saying like, hey, we need to make sure we're content where we're at. We're faithful where we're at. We recognize, hey, this is what God has for me. Okay, how can I please him in this season? How can I, these are the things that I need to be surrendering over to him every day. Lord, I would love to be married. I would love to be, to find that person. I'd love to have that. And I'm just going to be patient. The one thing I love there are a lot of things I love about my wife. But one thing, like,
Only thing.
the only one. No, like when we started dating, we started talking. She shared with me she had just gotten out of a 3-year-long relationship. About maybe a year before we started dating, or 6-8 months before, and she was like, "I had this freak out moment because I'm getting ready in college, and college is a big time where you meet, you can meet the one, right?" And she's like, "I could have married him, but I don't think I was supposed to. Like, I don't think it would have been, everything it could have been." And so I was like, "Okay, Lord, like I'm gonna break up with him." And she's like, "I had this freak out moment because like I could be single for the next 10 years. She's like, God, I'm not going to freak out for the next 10 years. When I'm 30, I probably have another freak out moment if I'm still single. But outside of that, I'm not going to freak out. I'm just going to faithfully walk with you." And those are things that, were encouraging to me, because it's like, hey, it's okay to have that freak out moment, to have that moment of anxiety. And we've all experienced it, right? It's like, oh no, I have a 10-page paper due. I've done nothing and it's due in like 5 hours. It's like the freak out, anxious, super high, like this panic attack type moment. But then we need to, really surrender that over to the Lord, begin to take some deep breaths, walk through those things about, okay, hey, things are not as bad as they seem. Hey, God is still God. God still loves me. He still cares for me. He will provide. I just need to be patient and follow him. And the benefit of that is in relationships and community, wherever it is, you will be faithful in those times. Then you'll be faithful in the times when you are married, or when you do have that stage, or you are serving at in this community or whatever, when things are going really well, and you'll have the experience of, okay, but hey, I've been able to walk through these times of struggle. And so God will use that for people that are going through those times of struggle to come to you and seek wisdom. Be like, hey, how'd you do that? I just took it a day at a time and faithfully walked with Jesus, and spent time in his word and, and everything, and applied it to my life. And so I think that's really important. And I know we've kind of all said the same thing, but yeah.
Yeah. I do kind of want to add on to that a little bit, of just being a good steward with what you do have. And Tyson, honestly, we've talked about this a lot, of being just a kind of a realist in life, a realist of like understanding what you do have and what you don't have. Not really being a pessimist towards those things, not completely just going overboard and having optimism towards everything, but like understanding what you do and don't have. Whether that be you're single at this time and you're desiring a relationship, or maybe you want to be in ministry or a pastor one day or something like that, and you desire that, and you're not in that position yet. Or maybe like even you play basketball and you want to make like the starting 5 or something like that, and you're not there yet. If you desire those things, we have to steward what we have first well. And what I mean by that is the things that we do have. Like if you're single at this moment, you have to learn to be content with this singleness and learn to prepare well for having a wife or having a husband, and getting to the word, and prepare to lead your spouse and to walk by your spouse to the best possible way you can. And if you're like on a basketball team and you're looking to make the starting 5 or something like that, you have to steward that well. Like if you are a 6 man or don't even play, you have to steward that well by practicing and getting into the gym and mastering your craft. And I think that's a really important thing within transitionings in life, and seeing people transition, is whenever you aren't transitioning and you oftentimes feel that comparison, we have to understand, like, okay, that's not my story. That's not what the Lord has for me at this moment. This is where I'm at, and I have to understand that. And I have to understand that this is where where the Lord has placed me in this moment, and I have to abide by this and steward this well, whatever that means for you. And we have to learn to take those things and run with it, and take what the Lord has given us and thank Him for it. But it might not be exactly what you want right now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of skip this last question and kind of go to the last one that I kind of had. And with transitioning in life, oftentimes it's really exciting. It's really awesome and fun. And sometimes it's really scary and hard. And it's maybe cause like just a roller coaster of emotions. What suggestions do you have towards people who are going through transitions in life, and whether it be good transitions or bad transitions?
Talk about them. Talk about them. Talk about your emotions. Talk about the transition. Talk about how you feel about it. Like with a trusted individual, because there are transitions in life that like are good and will make you feel anxious and whatever. But I've got friends who are going through some very bad transitions right now, and like the most important thing in both of them is just to talk about them. Talk about your feelings. Talk about like what you're grieving. Talk about what you're anxious about. Talk about what you're joyful about, and be like willing to go on that emotional journey in order to get to like a place of comfort in it. Because so often what we'll do during these times of transition is we'll just kind of sit there and just kind of hold all those emotions in. We'll hold that grieving in. We'll hold the anxiety in, just from a sense of like not knowing what to do with it, where it can be very beneficial for us to just sit down with a friend and be like, dude, I'm struggling right now with graduating. I'm struggling right now with being a freshman or starting a new job or like losing friends, getting married and all these things. And just being honest with people, I think is the biggest first step that we can do that most of us don't do in transitions.
Yeah.
I think to have an attitude of gratefulness. Express to God what you're thankful for. Gratitude is huge. It changes our perspective. If we focus on the things that we don't have, or the things that we're missing out on, or the things that we're leaving behind, then we can begin to be overwhelmed by that. And it can be natural. I mean, I'm not saying that, that means everything will be easy, right? No, like moving is hard, right? Nikki and I moving to Edmond was not easy. People may think it's easy because like, oh, well, Kyle, look at the job you have now. It's like, that doesn't mean it was easy. It was probably the worst move we've ever had in our 11 years. And that doesn't mean it's not worth it. But what's going to help is, instead of being overwhelmed by all of these things that are happening, that's just like, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Focus on, okay, God, but man, I'm thankful that we're together. Like, I'm thankful that we're going through this together. I'm thankful that we have each other to go through this, Lord. I'm thankful for these things that you've provided for us. And that really helped us in our perspective, and to recognize, okay, hey, like, yeah, these things are kind of terrible, but look at what God's doing around us, through us, in us, during this time. And I think it's really helpful to flip the perspective by doing that.
I just have one more like quick thing, and it kind of goes back to like when you're kind of comparing where other people are at in life. Keep the big picture in mind as far as like you were doing what you were supposed to be doing, because that is what the Lord has called you to. So like if you're single and you want to be married, like ask the Lord, how can I maximize my singleness for the sake of the kingdom? If you're in college for the next 4 years and you're like, I really don't want to be in college, or maybe you just have one more semester and you're like, I really hate it here and don't even want to do this last semester, ask the Lord, like, how can I use this time that I know that I still have here for the sake of your kingdom, for the advancement of your kingdom? Whatever it is, like, you are put where you are put at for the sake of God's glory. And so just asking, Lord, how can you use this time for the sake of God's glory and for the advancement of his kingdom can just help change your perspective in that way. So you're not coveting other things from people, or you're not sad because you're not somewhere else or whatever, because you know that you are where you are at and you are being faithful where you're at, because you're asking the Lord to show you how to advance his kingdom and bring him glory in this season of your life.
Yeah.
I have a question for Kyle if we have time. Because we talked about a lot of transitions, but there's one transition that none of us have gone through yet that you have gone through. And so the transition from being not a parent to a parent, can you just briefly talk about
Absolutely
that transition?
No, there's no time. So it is. You're never prepared. You're never prepared. It is probably one of the most terrifying things because now you are responsible not just for like a pet, right? Like you're responsible for a human being, and I think the thing that I would say is like it does radically flip everything upside down, because now I mean. You have to, you're in charge of making sure like they are clean. You're making sure like they're fed. You're making sure that they're sleeping. And it is definitely one of those like, I think the picture of the gospel came together when we had our son, because I remember in the delivery room holding him and I'm thinking through like, and I'm not trying to like over spiritualize it or anything, but I'm just like, man, like there is no way I would like give up this kid. Right? Like, there's no way I would sacrifice this kid. Like, I'm thinking through, like, Abraham, with Isaac, like, carrying him up. It's like, I wouldn't do that. Like, there's absolutely no way. Like, the Lord with Jesus being like, heck to the no. Like, we're all dying. Like, we're all going. And that's when I really just kind of realized I'm going to give everything and sacrifice everything that is me to see them grow in the Lord, to pray for them, to be used by the Lord, to pray for them to be healthy, to make it to adulthood, all of these things. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I thought we ran out. But like, I'm going to sacrifice and give everything. So where it is a very real picture, like in marriage, you have some of this, like it's no longer about me, but there's still that temptation, like it is about me. Like you're still selfish a little bit. In parenthood, it's like, oh, it really is no longer about me. So.
Yeah. Okay. We really got to wrap it up, but thank you for that last point, Kyle. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to tune in next week where we'll be having another awesome discussion. And if you want more information or want to ask us a question, make sure to follow us on Instagram at UCO BCM.